Have you ever just stopped and thought about the sheer scale of Taylor Swift's influence?
Mm.
I mean, it's everywhere. We talk about the Taylor Swift effect, but it feels like it's more than just a catchy phrase these days.
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of unprecedented, isn't it? You look
Right.
at the data, Google's most searched songwriter ever, Times Person of the Year, the first entertainer to get that.
Right.
And it goes beyond that. I mean, people are naming actual things after her millipedes, sensors,
Right.
and shows this deep embedding in, well, everything.
It really does. So today, we're going deep. We've pulled together a whole stack of sources, academic papers, fan discussions, legal stuff, economic reports, you name it.
A real mix.
Exactly.
Right.
And our mission here is to try and unpack how she went from, a pop star, a huge one, obviously,
Yeah.
but into this cultural force,
Yeah.
economic driver, even a political influencer.
And what that all means, really.
Yeah, what does it mean for us? So stick around and you'll get a pretty comprehensive picture of this whole phenomenon. Let's jump in. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, sort of. Her artistic core, songwriting. How does she establish that so early, and how has it, evolved?
Well, it's pretty striking how young she was, writing these really personal songs at 12, 13,
Yeah.
and then signing with Big Machine at 14. That's incredibly young to have that kind of focus.
It really is.
And then, remember Speak Now, there were whispers, maybe more than whispers, questioning if she really wrote her own song.
Right, the authorship question.
Exactly. So her response, she wrote the entire album herself. Every single track, solo credited. That was a huge statement. It basically said, yes, I am the writer.
A definitive answer.
Totally. And
Yeah.
her style, it hits that sweet spot, doesn't it? The themes are universal love, loss, growing up, but the details are so specific, like little snapshots. That's what makes people feel like she's singing their story.
That connection is definitely key. So when you dig into the lyrics, like fans and researchers do, what specific patterns or motifs keep popping up again and again?
Oh, there are quite a few recurring threads. Like, she literally writes about writing songs quite a bit. Think Our Song or Sweet Nothing. It's very meta.
Huh, interesting.
Then there's the whole celestial thing, stars and the sky. They show up everywhere, often tied to fate or big emotions, like in Call It What You Want or Cowboy Like Me.
Okay.
And this idea of accidents versus planning is fascinating, especially that mastermind idea from Midnight's. Like, did it just happen or did she make it happen?
She plays with that idea a lot.
Definitely. Deception and secrets, too. That's a big, and angles like Reputation, Midnight's, even Speak Now, adds drama. And you get fairy tales and kingdoms, often with queens being mentioned, representing power or maybe vulnerability.
Right, the royalty reference.
Yeah. And obviously music and writing itself as subjects, plus even plants. Red or purple flowers, especially roses, seem to symbolize strong feelings or maybe something fleeting. It all weaves together into this really rich tapestry fans love to explore.
It sounds incredibly layered.
Ah.
Okay, so beyond the lyrics, which are clearly intricate, her actual sound has changed dramatically over the years. Talk us through that genre journey, country to pop to folk to synth pop. How did she pull that off?
It's quite the evolution, isn't it? Start firmly in country, got her breakthrough there. Then 1989, that was the big pivot. A decisive move into pure pop.
But not just any pop, right?
Exactly. She didn't just copy the R&B or dance sounds that were big then. She carved out her own space, really defined a certain kind of pop for that era, made her a global icon.
Okay.
Then later albums like Reputation or Midnight's, you hear more electronic sounds, even touches of hip-hop and R&B. She wasn't afraid to experiment.
And then the folk albums came out of nowhere.
Right. Folklore and Evermore. That indie folk direction during the pandemic was a total surprise, but it felt authentic. More complex stories, a different vibe. And now, the Tortured Poets department seems to be back towards a kind of minimalist synth pop.
So much range.
It is. But I think the key is she manages to blend this artistic growth and emotional honesty with, massive commercial appeal. Each shift feels like part of her story, so the fans tend to follow. The core storytelling voice remains.
That makes sense. The voice stays consistent even if the music changes. So how does all this, the artistic shifts, the deep fan connection, feed into how she handles her public image? She seems like a real master of controlling the narrative.
Oh, definitely. There's been a noticeable shift over time. Initially, she was quite apolitical, right? But she's spoken about how a conversation with Todrick Hall really changed things for her.
About LGBTQ plus rights?
Yes. He asked her, point blank, what she'd do if her future son was gay. And that apparently spurred her to become a much more vocal advocate, petitioning for the Equality Act, performing at World Pride.
A clear turning point.
Seems so. Then you had the period during her relationship with Joe Alwyn where she became much more private, really pulled back from the spotlight compared to earlier years.
Yeah, a definite shift.
And her current PR approach, it's very controlled, few interviews, really letting the music and the media coverage do the talking. And her publicist, Tree Paine, has a reputation for being, well, quite direct.
How so?
Instead of just no comment, Paine often issues these really strong, detailed statements to counter rumors or criticism head on. It's a proactive way to try and shape the narrative, regain control quickly. It's all very deliberate, very managed.
Okay, her art is one thing, but her business moves are just as significant. Let's talk about the re-recordings. Taylor's version. That wasn't just about money, was it? What was the real drive there?
It was fundamentally about ownership and control, a massive power play, really. The issue was her old label, Big Machine, owned the master recordings of her first 6 albums.
The actual sound recordings.
Exactly. Not the songs themselves. She always owned a copyright to the lyrics and melodies, but the specific recordings.
Yeah.
The label controlled how those were used, licensed everything.
Which means they controlled a huge part of her legacy.
Precisely. So to regain control over her own work, she decided to re-record everything, create new masters that she would own completely. It was a bold move, putting artist rights front and center in a very public way.
And it wasn't just a legal thing. She turned it into this huge fan event. How did she manage that? Marketing genius.
Absolutely brilliant marketing, yes. She tapped right into nostalgia. Fans got to relive those earlier eras, but with slightly updated production, maybe clearer vocals, plus these vault tracks.
The unreleased songs, right. Huge incentive.
Huge. And she brought the fans into the process. Behind-the-scenes stuff, social media clues, those famous Easter eggs. It turned the whole thing into this collective puzzle, this clowning culture where everyone's hunting for clues.
Builds incredible loyalty.
Totally. And it sparked massive media discussion about artist rights. Plus, the side effect, she basically revitalized the vinyl market, dubbed the Queen of Vinyl. Sales hit highs not seen in decades. She even became Record Store Day's global ambassador. It was multi-layered.
The economic side is just staggering. Swiftonomics is a real term now. What makes her economic impact so different, so significant?
It's the sheer scale and the ripple effect. The Eras Tour estimates are around, US $4.3 billion added to the US GDP. That's not just ticket sales.
Known as hotels, restaurants.
Everything. Local businesses, tourism, cities reported seeing hundreds of millions in impact, sometimes reportedly more than massive events like the Olympics might bring. The fan dedication, willingness to travel and spend is just off the charts.
Wow.
And you see it elsewhere, too. UK tour pre-sales boosted consumer spending figures. Hotels booked solid months ahead in Europe. Plus, she has those big corporate deals, Target, Apple, Starbucks, AMC for the film.
Right, the partnerships.
And companies jumping on the bandwagon, using her name. But maybe most interesting is how she challenges the industry itself. The re-recordings changed conversations. Her fight with Ticketmaster over monopolies and fees actually led to policy changes, Senate hearings.
The Taylor Swift policy adjustment.
Exactly. She's influencing not just culture and spending, but actual industry practices and even policy. It's quite remarkable.
It really is. And this influence now clearly stretches into social and political areas, too. Tell us about her advocacy work. How has that grown?
It has grown quite significantly from her earlier career. We mentioned the LGBTQ plus advocacy sparked by that conversation, leading to real action, like pushing for the Equality Act, performing at World Pride, and the impact of You Need to Calm Down on Blue Lab donations.
Okay.
On racial justice, she was very public in criticizing Trump's comments during the George Floyd protests. She donated to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, Black Lives Matter, pushed for Juneteenth as a holiday. She's advocated for gun control, donated to victims, and marched for our lives. And personally, a very powerful moment was her countersuit for sexual assault against that radio DJ. Winning that symbolic dollar sent a strong message about believing survivors. It feels like a conscious use of her platform that's developed over time.
But taking stands like that, especially now, it's rarely straightforward, is it? She's faced backlash from different directions.
Absolutely. It really shows how tricky it is for any huge public figure in such a polarized time. From some parts of the right wing, she gets criticized for having, quote, woke liberal views. There were even those wild Pentagon psyop theories floating around in some media.
Yeah, those were out there.
Definitely illustrates the intensity. But then from some on the left, you hear criticisms that maybe her activism is performative, or that she hasn't spoken out enough on issues specifically impacting women of color, sometimes termed white feminism.
So criticism from both sides.
It highlights that tension speak out and risk alienating some fans or facing scrutiny, or stay silent and be criticized for that. What's fascinating, though, is that studies show her general approval ratings often remain higher than major political figures like Biden or Trump.
That's incredible, really.
It is. It makes her this kind of anomaly in American culture, someone who still somehow manages to connect across some of those deep divides, despite the political noise surrounding her.
That cross-cutting appeal is rare. And this influence, it's not just in the U.S., and it's even become a serious topic for academics.
Yeah, the reach is global. Voter registration spikes in the U.S. after her posts are well documented, but it even touches foreign elections. Remember that candidate in Guatemala using her in a TikTok? Or Canadian MPs complaining when she initially skipped Canada on the tour.
And Prime Minister Trudeau tweeting at her.
Exactly. It shows real-world political notice. And academia has definitely taken note. Major universities, Harvard, Stanford, NYU, Melbourne, offering courses analyzing her.
On what aspects?
All sorts. Swiftonomics, the psychology of her fan base, her literary influences, even intellectual property law examined through her career, especially the re-recordings.
Oh.
And cultural critics often discuss her, and particularly the Eras Tour, alongside something like the Barbie movie, as these massive cultural moments celebrating femininity, critiquing patriarchy, and proving there's a huge underserved market for stories that take women's and girls' feelings seriously, and that they can be blockbusters.
A powerful combination of cultural resonance and commercial success. But let's touch on a less positive impact, the environmental footprint. Global tours on that scale.
That's a significant point of criticism, and it's a tough one for any major touring artist. Her private jet use, in particular, has drawn a lot of fire. Reports estimated her jet emissions in 2022 were around 8,300 tons of carbon.
Which is a lot.
It's huge, like 1,800 times the average person's annual emissions. It really throws into sharp relief the environmental cost of that kind of global operation. The industry is wrestling with sustainability, but for someone at her level, the scale makes it a really visible and challenging issue. She definitely faces pressure on that front.
Okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground here. From the artist evolving her craft and narrative, to the businesswoman shaking up the industry, to this cultural and political figure who can mobilize millions. It's this incredible mix of personal storytelling, sharp strategy, and this undeniable ability to connect.
It truly is. And her story really underscores how influence works today, doesn't it? It's not just one thing anymore. Someone like Swift, with that kind of platform, can genuinely shape economies, impact laws, shift cultural conversations. It's all interconnected now. It shows the power of a carefully built brand combined with, real artistic connection and that intensely loyal fan base.
So maybe the next time you hear a Taylor Swift song or see another headline, it's worth thinking about that whole complex web, the art, the business, the impact, the intention behind it all. And it leaves us with a question for you, listening. In a world where one person can have such immense multifaceted power affecting everything from your city's economy to voter turnout, what kind of responsibility does that put on both the person with the influence and on all of us who are influenced? What does that demand in terms of how we engage, how aware we need to be?